All right, welcome all you wrestling fans to the 6th episode of the Pop-Up Powerbomb Podcast. I'm your host, the Breathtaking One himself, Spooky. Tonight, wrestling fans, we talk about this week in WWE. AEW Collision debuts with, of course, the return of CM Punk and a new TNT champion is crowned. We also discuss what to do with LA Knight and Zoe Stark, and we have much, much more in store. So I got my coffee over here. I hope you all got yours or a nice cold beverage. Now, as they say, let's get ready to rumble. Woo!
That's boxing. That's boxing, dude. That's
Hey, no, Mike. If you remember, Michael Buffer used to do it for WCW.
Yeah, he did. And
Yeah.
I think he also did it at one of the WrestleManias as well.
Yeah, he did. And then his brother does it for the UFC.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Good to see you back in the chat. How are you doing, brother? Always good to see you. I seen you earlier in Snark's stream, following each other around today. Thank you all. Come all. If you're a wrestling fan, get in on here and share this out and hit the like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And let people know about it. That's always a great help. I got my brother back this week. We got Paul back in the building. He took a trip up to Canada and was at a convention. It sounds like he had a good time away. How you been, brother, and how was the trip? Who'd you get to meet?
The trip was good. Wrestling-wise, they only got to meet one person because the rest of them weren't there the night I was over in that area. I got to meet Tito Santana, or Chico, as Jesse likes to call him. And sadly, Jesse didn't make it that night. There were some transportation issues, so he had to cancel. So, but it was pretty cool. So I met him, got to chat with him for a few minutes, got a picture with him. Yeah, it was interesting. So
That would have been
always
interesting.
has a lot. Yeah.
And as you mentioned
And,
before the show, he wanted to charge $600 for 30 minutes.
I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah, if we want him on the podcast, he charges an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah, an arm and a leg.
Yep, the only people I'm paying to be on this podcast, or I'm willing to even consider, are some of the more current guys that are actually active.
Yeah. Sometimes some of these celebs you have to wonder.
Yeah.
That's all we can say on
Like
that.
yeah, and there's some older guys too. I'd love to sit down with Steve Austin. I'd love to sit down with newer guys. You know me, I'm a Cody Rhodes fan. I know you guys aren't as hot on Cody as I am, but I'm a Cody Rhodes fan. I would love to have a discussion with Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even his brother would be a great discussion.
Yeah.
Dustin.
Oh yeah, Dustin. Yeah, Dustin would be awesome, especially And Dustin has time now too. Hey, Dustin, if you're listening, I can't.
Hey,
And of course, and Booker T. I'll go after it. Come on, Booker. The call out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get that one happening. See who's the better commentator.
Yeah.
But no, sounds like a good little trip away. And like you said, also you mentioned the line for Alundra Blaze was long and wide. Yeah. That doesn't.
Yeah, it was pretty long, and I didn't have the time or the patience to sit in line to. And when they're that busy, they don't have time to chat, which is what I like to do.
Yeah.
Because we're on 4GQTV, I will say I did get to chat with some of the horror people. I got to chat with 3 of the people from the Terrifier series.
Nice.
And hopefully we'll be lining up some interviews with them. Damien Leone, the director, producer, the guy who played Art the Clown, whose name, he's got that, David Howard Thornton. That's it. That's 3 names.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, Elliot Fulham, who is also Little Punk People. He does interviews with punk. He's done interviews with punk rock people ever since he was a little kid. He has an album out. He did the Terrifier movie. So hopefully, I've got feelers out for them. They've all said they're willing if they have the time.
Nice. And yeah, they'd all be good interviews, especially Damien Leone and the guy behind the mask, so to speak,
Right.
of Art. That'd be absolutely wonderful.
Who is much more than just Art. He's also voiced the Joker.
Yes,
So,
yes. And he also did the horror version of The Grinch as well.
yes.
Yeah. So, no, interesting times, and glad to have you back, but glad you also had a fantastic time. Didn't bother, obviously, trying to recreate Houdini's act, apparently.
No.
No time.
Sadly, actually, because on our free day, which was Monday, it rained the whole time.
Oh, that'd be
So
right.
we didn't really go out and do anything. Yeah.
That'd be
I
right.
did drive up to where I could see the falls and went, ooh, look, water. But that was about it. Didn't even get out of the car. So that would have to wait for another trip.
That's it. Hey, what's good, Snark? Good to see you, brother. Welcome in, brother. Welcome in. You haven't missed much. We
Yeah,
just got
Snark, you missed. We just gave away $1,000. You missed it, dude. That's it. Yeah.
He was playing some F1 earlier. I was watching him play some F1. That's a lot. It surprised me. That has a lot more in-depth career than what I was going in thinking. So it was really cool to check out.
I've never been able to do the F1 games because they're truly a simulation. You got to hit those corners just right and stuff. And if you don't, it makes you start over. And it's like I can't do that.
If you don't have that precision, you're going into the wall.
No,
But no, we're just about to get in the topics, brother. So you didn't miss anything. So we'll start with the quick one first, obviously. This past week in WWE, we won't spoil Raw because Raw's going on right now.
Which sucks because I want to talk about what happened already tonight.
But no, last week, I suppose the talking points from last week, the big one obviously being the Bloodline implosion, as we've seen on SmackDown. Jey Uso made his choice, and boy oh boy was I'm telling you now, if they gave awards to the wrestlers for their acting and stuff like that, he deserves an Academy Award for his acting, because he's just brilliant. The way it played out, I thought was really well scripted, and how it kind of looked initially like he was going to side with Roman, and he's getting his brother's face, and it was as if Roman had gotten through to him, got into his head, and then he goes, "You're out," and then he says, "I'm out too," and boom, with the super kick.
Yep.
And we could see that happen.
He made the decision I thought he should make, which I thought was cool. I'm glad he didn't knuckle under and give in to Roman and the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
But again, they missed an opportunity to punch him in the head, and they didn't do it. Yeah.
No.
Heyman. Heyman's just sitting there like one of them should have popped Heyman just because. Yeah.
No, but I did like the whole story playing out where Jay was like, "Well, if I'm in, you're out. If you want me in the bloodline, you gone." Like,
yeah.
So I really
like that.
And he even said it to Roman too, like in his scripted speech. He turned around and said, "It's either me or it's him," And then Roman came back and said, "Well, he's not your wise man. He's not the bloodline. He's just my wise man." So when you take
he made it. It's all about me.
Yeah.
And you're just along for the ride. He's done that all along, and they've always taken it. This time they didn't take it, which I thought was the correct way to do. Yeah.
Yep. And so obviously with what broke down on SmackDown, it's going to lead to a tag team bout at Money in the Bank, between Solo and Roman taking on the Usos, and they're calling it the bloodline Civil War is what they're calling it. So taking a page out of Marvel's book with the whole Civil War thing there. But then, like, that storytelling, again, it's a slow cook, and I'm glad and happy with the way that they've been doing this. It's really been great to watch it unfold. And there's obviously still more to come, because eventually I think Solo at some point is going to turn himself.
Yeah, I was just about to point that out. That's the only domino left to fall, and I think that at some point he will, because with nobody else there for Roman to abuse, Solo's going to get the brunt of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think for a little while he'll obviously stick with Roman. Maybe he turns when Roman like properly defends his belt again. That's when I'll think something might go down. As we don't know yet which way they're going to go with that either. But all signs, as I said, seem to be pointing he'll hold it till at least WrestleMania next year, and Seth might be the one that takes it from him if they get what they want anyway, because those two boys, as we know, have been discussing that. Which brings us to the next bit of news that came out of WWE last week. So Seth Rollins got called out on NXT by Rick Steiner's son, Bron Breakker, and he's going to come and defend the title down in NXT against Bron, which should be an interesting matchup, because as we know, Bron's a power guy, and Seth's very methodical and very ground based and a little bit of high flying chucked in. He's sort of a balanced wrestler in that regard.
Right.
But I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see the crossover. I mean, that's where it all started for him when it comes to WWE. That's where Seth started. So I think it's a good return, I guess you could say, for him. And he did.
Without giving anything away for tonight, I will say that it looks like NXT and Raw are going to see some crossovers, and NXT and proper WWE are going to see some crossovers over the next few weeks at least.
Yes.
So
yes. So
there seems to be quite a bit of cross-pollination going on, which is cool. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's great. They got that developmental brand down there, and it's good that they're doing crossover. I mean, you've also got Baron Corbin that's gone down, and he's going to take on Carmelo. You've got Mustafa Ali, who's interjected himself in between Wesley and the British guy. Trying to think of his name now, but
they're all British now. I've noticed. There's a lot of
there's a lot of Europeans they've got in there now.
There is.
And then of course
Tomaseo's also crossing the line.
Yeah.
I think it's good because it allows them to introduce those guys in NXT to the wider audience and see how they hit. They're checking things out. Okay, how is this guy going to hit with the audience? Let's see what kind of reaction we get.
Yeah, exactly. Other thing that happened last week too is Noam Dar lost his Heritage Cup.
Yes.
And he lost it without even being in the match because he was on crutches. So he put in his little substitute, his little sidekick, and he lost the match to Nathan Fraser, which I think was good to give Nathan Fraser that knock. He'd been working extremely hard in NXT. I thought they had done a good job at the way they introduced him and then built him up. And I thought he needed something. And obviously the title scene at the moment, with even both the men's titles down there, is a little bit crowded. So it was just great to see him get, his just desserts in that regard. And he's now the new Heritage Cup champion. And we might even see that defended a little bit more often with a babyface holding it now. Because as we know, baby faces have a tendency to, be that fighting champion, and so we might see more of that. And I'd like to see also the Bron Breakker Seth thing go past just one match too. I'd love to see Bron come up onto Raw, because I think he's on the verge of coming up to the main roster. I've been saying that for the last month or so since he dropped the title to Carmelo, that he's done everything he can in NXT. So I think this feud with Seth might be the start of him coming up to the main brand. And it'd be good to see him. I just don't know which brand they're going to put him on, but it's a start, and I think it's time. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think he'll have a fantastic match with Seth Rollins anyway.
Yeah, I do too. I like watching Seth wrestle, and I like it when he's out there working the ring and working the audience. I think it's fun to watch.
It is. Yeah. It is very fun. as I said, he's going to bring out the best in Bron Breakker, and I think Bron Breakker will even bring out the best in Seth as well, and they'll have a fantastic little match. This is only going to be beneficial to Bron in reality, because now taking on someone in the bright lights, one of the biggest stars in WWE, it's going to help get him over. It doesn't matter about the win-loss. It's just going to help him get over, especially if they have like a 4 or 5 star match, which I expect them to put on.
Right.
The young up-and-coming Steiner, and he's got a lot of ability. I think this heel character's doing him justice as well. I think he was getting a little bit stale with his baby face, and this is showing a new side, giving him a new element, and it's fantastic to see.
And we've talked about it before. Some of those guys, when they switch from baby face to heel, they really get to shine. They really get to have fun, because it's more fun to be a heel because you get over the shitload a lot more.
Yeah, and
you can.
I was just going to say the aspect I see with him is, ever since they've turned him heel, all I see is his uncle.
I was going to say the Steiners were heels for the most part anyway.
Yeah. Only Rick,
and they did it well, and they did it very well.
Yeah. Especially Scott, when he went solo and became Big Papa Pump, dyed his hair and that. And that's what I'm kind of seeing out of Bron Breakker right now is a lot of Scott Steiner.
Going to be Little Papa Pump.
Little Papa Pump, basically. Yeah. But hey, how you going, baby? Good to see you. Good to see you. Stop by. Thank you. But yeah, no, it's fantastic to see. And, as I said, WWE programming as a whole is just getting better and better. I remember, some weeks Raw would be great and SmackDown would be a bit blah, and other weeks it'd be the other way around. And now I think we're seeing it kind of balanced across the board, so it's actually worth tuning in. And they're in a great time right now.
Okay, so this is going to bring up the side subject of, does this mean that Vince is kind of doing a hands-off approach for the most part? Except for some big things?
Yeah, I think he is. Especially, we know he stuffed up with the Raw after WrestleMania. That was all him. And
right.
I think he heard the noise from that. And apart from that, I think people in the locker room spoke up, because him being there and doing that kind of put morale down.
Yeah.
I think even Triple H probably had a word to him as well and said, look, we're fine to have you here and put in your input on some of the main event scene and stuff like that, but you've got to let me sort of run the show. You've got to let Nick Khan do his thing as well. And he should know that his company's in good hands, and it's even in probably better hands now that they're teamed up with I was about to say Anthem, not Anthem. UFC and that. So
UFC,
yeah. So he's probably a lot more hands off now, I think.
Like I said, except for maybe some of the main event stuff, the main storyline stuff that he wants to have his hands on.
Yeah.
But he's letting a lot of the mid card stuff play out the way they want it to.
Yeah, that's true. So Vince will do what Vince will do. We know that.
Yeah, because as nice as it is, it could be next week all of a sudden he takes control again and we're back to shit.
Yeah. It's a minute you see the programming go to crap is when you know.
Oh, that's Vince.
That's Vince. Yeah. But no, moving right along. AEW also had a big week. With the debut of Collision, their new Saturday night show, which I think the theme music, Elton John's Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, suits it down to a T. Their new...
They paid a lot of money for that, I guarantee.
Oh, yeah. The new stage looks great. And I thought top to bottom, it was a really good debut card. I actually think that most of it actually wasn't even booked by Tony Khan. From reports I've read, it was actually booked by their new hiring in Jimmy Jacobs. He used to be a producer behind the scenes in WWE as well as Impact Wrestling. Also a former big-time indie wrestling star himself, especially with Ring of Honor. So you've got
Okay,
him.
by the way, just to give the audience a heads up, I have not had a chance to watch any of that or anything. I've been, I got back on Tuesday night and I've been kind of recovering all week. So
Yeah, I could imagine. But no, it was a great debut. Punk came out at the top of the show, had a very interesting shoot style speech, kind of underlying the issues between him and the Elite, especially taking a little shot at the Young Bucks, where he said, people refer to him as One Bill Phil, and that there was some. And he was the best out of and there was some cheap bucks was the statement, cheap bucks. So he took a little pot shot, and he said people want to see me retire, but he goes, until someone's ready to fill my boots and proves to me that they can sort of take up where he's sort of leading by. He's not going anywhere, and he even brought back in a bag the original AEW World Title because he never lost it. So he had a pot shot at MJF in his speech as well. But no, it was a fantastic card. I think it's helped with them doing their little brand split that they're doing with it. We had a new TNT champion crown in Luchasaurus. Now, that's the only thing I didn't get, because I'm like, this TNT title seems to be changing a little bit too often for my liking, because Wardlow only recently just won it back. And I thought he was, they were going to give him a decent run. I know he's a 3-time champion now, but it was just interesting that they went this route with it. But, congratulations out to Luchasaurus. He's been a hard worker since the debut and inception of AEW for AEW. So it's I know he's had tag team gold before, but this is good to build him up as a monster heel singles guy.
I said it 2 weeks ago. It's hard for me to take somebody getting Luchasaurus seriously. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
He sounds like one of the Autobots or something.
He does. But I got to give it to him. Turning him monster heel and having Christian as his mouthpiece is kind of working.
Yeah.
He's being looked at more serious as a more serious character now. Obviously, he's not coming out doing the Jungle Boy thing and sort of being looked at as a joke, where he kind of was in Jungle Boy's shadow, I guess you could say. But no, they had a fantastic debut. We've talked about it before. The design that they chose for Collision looks very WCW Nitro-esque, especially with the colours. But no, I love the stage. I love the outlook of the stage. I thought that was really cool. When you get a chance, you should check out the. They've probably got pictures up everywhere of what the stage looks like. I actually thought it was really cool. Made it look like definitely like a premiere show. And so, making it just as big a deal as Dynamite. So it's basically
So did they have? Because I remember they had crowd issues. They had ticket sale issues, but I guess it worked out.
Yeah. It looked pretty damn sold out there in Chicago, which I had a feeling the tickets would start going out the door the minute they 100% confirmed Punk. It definitely looked, I'd say at least a good 3/4 fill from what you could see when they were panning the camera around, which is decent for the United Center. It was also cool. It was also cool because I didn't think we'd ever see it. Referee Aubrey Edwards wrestled and got in the ring.
Oh, nice.
Because it was her and Mark Briscoe and his dad in a trios match against Jeff Jarrett, Karen Jarrett, and Jay Lethal.
Wait, hang on. Mark Briscoe's dad got to be like 1,000 years old.
He is, but and when they tagged him in, he was only in there for short periods. But he, surprisingly enough, he could do a few things in there, and he even did a double team move with Mark.
Did it look better than when Vince tried to take the shot last year? Remember when Vince tried to
Oh
take
yeah, yeah. It was better than that. It was he's in better. He's in better ring shape. Ring shape than Vince. That's for sure. I'll give him that. Because I'm pretty sure on their farm that he trained with the boys a lot. I know he used to do a lot of things with them in Ring of Honor as well when Ring of Honor was its own entity.
So he's like the current day Stu Hart, basically.
Basically, yeah.
I'll be 1,000 years old and I'll still get in this ring with you and kick your ass.
Yeah, pretty much, you know. But it was a great trios match, and it was fantastic to see.
Check it out.
Aubrey get in there. She looked the part, and her and Karen finally locked up. The first time they tried to lock up, of course, Karen, you know, playing the scared heel, she ran outside, and then she ran inside, and then she tagged straight out, and Aubrey's like, "Oh, come on," you know. So it was, but no, it was great. The commentary team was really good. I thought they got former WWE commentator and backstage interviewer in Kevin Kelly, who now does a lot of work for New Japan, nice. And teamed him with Nigel McGuinness, who we know is a former wrestler and was a commentator for NXT UK. And so that was a great pairing. JR joined them, of course, for the main event, which was, again, another trios match with FTR and Punk taking on the Bullet Club Gold and Samoa Joe. And, man, we got some good old feels when Punk and Joe locked it up in the ring. They hadn't locked it up. I think they said it was since 2005, I believe it was, where they had probably the best series of matches in wrestling history in Ring of Honor. That Joe ended up coming out on top out of the, I think it was a series of 3 matches. So that was great. Punk actually looked in better shape better than when he was there previously, prior to the injury. He really did in ring shape. He looked really, really good. And his teaming with FTR, of course, was phenomenal. They're all actually best friends in real life. So you could tell they just gelled and they clicked. And even Joe teamed well with Bullet Club Gold, of course, as well. We also got a couple of call-outs heading into Forbidden Door this weekend too. The New Japan champion Sonata put out the call last week for an open challenge for his title that Jungle Boy Jack Perry answered. So we got a new match there. Old Hiroshi Tanahashi challenged MJF for MJF's title at Forbidden Door. So that's booked in right now. So this Forbidden Door, which we'll be talking about soon, is shaping up to be a nice pay-per-view when you start looking over at the match card. But no, all in all, fantastic debut. I think they had really good numbers for Collision, and going forward, I think it's a good day for them too, like a good evening Saturday night. It's been quite some time since we've had a Saturday night wrestling program. I think
we haven't had. I think the last time we had a standard Saturday night thing was WWE back in.
I was going to say, WC. If you remember, WCW had it with WCW Saturday night
too.
Yeah. So it had been a minute, and it was fantastic to get some wrestling. Now you really can say you've got wrestling on nearly every day of the damn week.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So
exactly. Especially with all the different promotions. So it's fantastic time as a wrestling fan, and no, I think they'll do well on that Saturday time slot. So going forward, so it'll be interesting to see. All right. Moving on to the third topic.
Let me just say, I'm watching tonight's show, and I did not really a spoiler. Logan Paul is sitting on top of a ladder. I'll pay real money if somebody will come knock that ladder out from under his ass. I'm just saying.
Oh man, no, that would be funny to see. But he's on.
I swear the man looks like he has a mullet. The man has a mullet. Okay, I don't get what.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that's right, Yobi. WWE had Velocity as well. That was also on a Saturday where they turned Arena green. Yeah. But no, moving right along, which is this. Now, this is an interesting topic. We're talking about two people here, and I'll just read a couple of little quotes from some articles. One by Mark Henry to do with LA Knight, the other by Bully Ray to do with Zoe Starks. And this is talking about, and we'll get into discussion about, since both of these two stars have come up from NXT. So I'll start with Bully Ray's quotes on Zoe Stark. He hasn't been impressed, and I kind of agree with him since Zoe Stark's moved up to the main roster. Bully Ray, of course, has been one of Zoe Stark's most vocal supporters over the past year or so. In fact, when NXT boss Shawn Michaels appeared on Bully's podcast, Ray and Michaels spoke glowingly of Stark's potential and predicted a bright future for the 29-year-old wrestler. Now, while Stark impressed a lot of fans since bursting onto the scene in NXT, and even to a degree as Trish Stratus' protege on Raw, Ray has been surprisingly critical, though, of Stark's work thus far on the main roster. He went on to say on his Busted Open radio, "In NXT, I really enjoyed Zoe Stark. So far on the main roster, not so much." He said, "I feel that her promo and verbiage are extremely forced and that she's trying to memorize her lines. I didn't feel the same way about her in NXT. I felt she was a lot more relaxed and going out there and just letting it flow." Now, I don't know, is it because of the big spotlight of Monday Night Raw? Maybe she's not used to someone from Gorilla telling her to do things. I'm not sure. But Ray went on to clarify that his criticism of Stark's promo stemmed not exactly from the exact verbiage as she was speaking, but the manner in which she was delivering her words. He said, "I go by the way things make me feel. The tone, inflection, volume, energy, and personality. I'm actually looking at Zoe's eyes and watching her memorize stuff. You can just see it in her face." While Ray absolved WWE's writing team, he suspects Vince McMahon could be playing a part in her character progression. He went on to say,
no comment.
Last week, at the end of the match, when she's sitting atop of the ladder after Becky defeated Chelsea, she's got this very mean, I'm going to get you pro wrestling face on. To me, all of that stuff screams Vince. He goes, "I will defend Vince on a lot of great things, but some of the stuff he wants is so over the top sometimes." And so I kind of agree with him, and we'll get a little bit more into that in a minute. But the second half of this is to do with LA Knight. Now, Mark Henry thinks LA Knight needs to lobby himself in WWE more. Now, as we know, LA Knight's had an organic rise as an emerging star in WWE, establishing a connection with the crowd through natural charisma and entertaining promos. But obviously, like many before him, Knight has managed to get over without much direct support from WWE Creative. Now, commenting on Knight's position during an episode also of Busted Open Radio, Mark Henry went on to say about Knight, he goes, I've got it here, that it's interesting how WWE laments how they choose to push certain wrestlers. Mark said, "It sucks that there have been times," and even he was talking to Bully at the time, he said Bully can attest to that somebody gets over naturally and organically, and then they say, well, he's already getting over or she's already getting over, let's do something with somebody else, rather than pile it on that guy. Pour the gasoline on the fire, so to speak, Henry pleaded when it comes to LA Knight. He's on fire right now, and you need to pour the gasoline on it right now to take advantage of. Recalling his own experiences pushing for more of a spotlight in WWE, Henry shared a simple piece of advice for LA Knight. He said, "Go directly to management. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. Say something," Henry advised. "Will y'all do something with me, please? I'm busting my ass. I'm getting over here. I'm one of your biggest stars. Come on, do something." Henry.
No, I have heard, let me interject real quick. I have heard all through the years that is the one thing Vince will respond to. If you go stand up to him face to face and say, "Hey, do something with this," he'll do something. But he's almost like he's waiting for you to make that stand.
Yeah. You know? And Henry went on to add, when he was active, he used to ask for more outside of the ring responsibilities, including media, Make-A-Wish, Special Olympic appearances, to show management that he was serious about being an asset to the company. He says, "I don't know if LA Knight is doing that himself. You got to lobby for yourself, he explained. And if they say no, then you know what the deal is. When your contract comes up, don't try to renew it, right? So, yeah. I agree. I think both these stars, both Zoe and LA Knight, were doing fantastic in NXT. But since coming to the main roster, not so much. I agree with Bully Ray's comments. I think Zoe, since coming up, a lot of her stuff seems forced. Isn't coming across naturally.
Like then you can see it in her face. Watch when she does it. If she starts looking up to one side, like that she's thinking about what she's supposed to be saying.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just not flowing right with her.
Right.
And I don't.
She's a lot like me. You can't give me a script and say you've got to script it. You've got to give me, okay, here's where we want to end up. I can do that, but you got to let me do it my own way.
Yeah. And you're not right, Yobi. When it pertains to LA Knight with stuff like this, he says Rusev, he got over organically and Vince killed it. Cesaro got over organically and Vince killed it as well. Yeah, you're not wrong with both of those, and they both did. Cesaro there for a time was huge, especially when they turned him babyface and fans were getting right into his matchups. Especially when he would grab them by the legs and start swinging them around. And Rusev did too. Like, again, the crowd got into the whole Rusev Day thing, and they really should have capitalised on it. And that's what I worry about LA Knight. You got a guy here that can not only wrestle in between the ropes, but was born with a microphone in his mouth. You could put him in there with anybody, any feud, and, he's going to make someone look $1 million. And, they need to capitalise on him now. Again, he's on fire. But the other reason I say that is he's in his 40s. And so, he's not one of your younger talents. He's obviously quite fit. And he's, definitely easily got 5-6 years left, maybe 7 years. But you've got to take advantage of it while the iron's hot. And I just don't think they're doing too much with him. I'm glad that he's the one thing that they are doing, again, and this is all going to come down to if they're going to script him to win it, but I'm glad that he's in the Money in the Bank. I think he needs to win it, and have him fighting for get him help him get into the main event scene. Because I think he deserves and can carry one of those titles. I don't care if it's Roman's, I don't care if it's Seth's, but he could carry that. He's believable, and babyface will heel. Even though I do think he works very well as a cocky heel, from Hollywood and that bright lights, the megastar as he calls himself. I think that kind of all works for him, and. But he's brilliant at playing either side. But I think they need to do more with him, and I hope that this Money in the Bank might be the start of doing something with him. As for Zoe Stark, I definitely think for starters, she needs to calm down, get more relaxed. Be as relaxed as what you were in NXT. Don't try not to treat this any differently. I know this is a lot bigger stage. I know that this is bigger crowds than what she'd be used to in NXT. That's a more smaller, quaint venue. I think they might have to take a bit of a slow burn with her, but she needs someone else with her. I don't think Trisha's right with her. I think she would have been better if they had to turn Natty heel and teamed her with Natty, because Natty could not. I don't think would also. She'd do a fantastic job at getting her to be much calmer, much more relaxed, because Natty's, she helps a lot with all those younger talents. But I think Natty would help her get back that flow that she had in NXT, especially with delivering her promos and stuff, and. Realistically, she is playing a big bad heel. She doesn't need... I think for the moment, maybe a mouthpiece for her for a little while might help her, too. just until she gets that confidence back again. Because as I said, you could definitely tell the difference in her delivery from NXT to here, and maybe the bright light.
Like it alluded to, though, I believe it's because they're scripting her. They're telling her this is what we want you to say. They're trying to write her dialogue.
Yes.
And she's one of those, you can't do that.
No. You got to let it come through naturally. And maybe they need to take a page out of what Sean is doing down in NXT and just let her... I mean, they really didn't have to change much to do with her. That character was fine, and she was doing fine. If they had just brought her up and let her do her thing, it'd probably be more relaxed to her. And maybe she is getting, like, changes here and changes there from Gorilla, and that's putting her completely off. And then, you know, she's got a bunch of stuff in her head, and you can see it on her face each week since she's come up. She is standing there, or if she's sitting on top of the ladder, either way, and you can tell that she's thinking before she speaks. And so now it comes across more robotic-like because, you know, she's not getting that natural feel. But, yeah, you know.
She's not being her character. She's being the character they want her to be, not the one she created.
Yeah. And again, I just don't... I mean, I do and I don't like the pairing her and Trish, like... Because she's not really a Trish Stratus type, you know. She's completely different. Like, I think that's why she's like Natty. You know, she's like a bruiser in the females division. She's got a nice build about her. And I just think Natty would have been better to team with. Or, heck, I mean, I know she's currently teamed with Ronda, but if she wasn't, I would have teamed her with Shayna Baszler, like, for a bit. Like, those two would have suited each other because they're kind of in that aggressive bruiser heel of the female division. But yeah, I just don't know with the whole Trish thing. Like, it's good, obviously, to, I guess, pit her with a star and a legend in Trish. But yeah, I just don't know if the fit's that great. But as for LA Knight, what would you like to see them do with him, brother? Like, what do they need to do?
Let him, you know, promote him, you know. You know, give him just, you know, help him do his thing, basically. Yeah. You know, support what he's trying to do. Okay, he's done all the work, but he needs the company to help him take that next step.
Yeah.
Because he's somebody, again, 5 or 10 years or whatever, could be one of the leads of this company, but you're going to have to help him.
Exactly.
And if he doesn't get that help, he may say, mine, I'm going to go over here.
Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, you're not wrong, Yobi. Wade Barrett got over as Bad News Barrett too, and Vince killed that because he was getting a face reaction. You know, and I agree. Yeah. So what? Let it happen. If they're heels, I agree exactly with where you're going with that, Yobi. If they're heels and all of a sudden they're starting to get cheered, then let them make that slow progression over to being a babyface, because that's obviously what the fans are wanting. And it's going to happen naturally and organically.
Well, to me, even if they're heels and they're getting that babyface reaction, let it go, because
well, that's another.
Turn a baby face. You don't even have to turn a baby face. They're doing something right. Yeah. They're getting a major reaction. They're getting major support. Their shit is selling out of the stores. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with that side of things too, because especially these days, the lines when it comes to fans are being blurred. Like me, for example. I like a lot of the heels because I think, as I like to say, the heels get to have the most fun, right?
And I said the same thing. I said,
and so it's not. It really isn't like the '90s. I remember the '90s as a fan, and fans would literally just cheer the baby faces and boo the heels. That's just how it was. And over time, those lines got more and more blurred because people will just cheer for whoever their favourites are, and if their favourites happen to be a heel,
and a well done heel is fun as hell to watch. Yes, Roddy Piper is probably one of the funnest heels ever.
Yep. Ric Flair was a brilliant heel, and people loved him as a heel. You know, like you said, Rowdy Piper, people just loved him as a heel.
Even Jesse the Body, probably one of the best known heels because he went to the ringside side of things.
Yep.
But he was never, I don't think he was ever
The only reason, the reason why Roman's so popular now is because he went here and people love him as his character.
Yeah.
They didn't love him so much when he was the boring, sort of push down your throat babyface. I know that wasn't his fault, but they just, you know, because it didn't happen naturally.
He also doesn't have the look of a face. I mean, even when he tries, he doesn't have the look of a face.
No, no. I think a heel is perfect for him. And if you were ever going to change him again, I'd change him to what they classify as a tweener. So he's like, you know, fits. I guess I know they classified Stone Cold as a babyface, but he wasn't your typical goody two shoes babyface.
No, not really. He was very much a tweener.
Exactly. They just, like, if they listed, you know, they had a list and they had the heels and they had babyface. He was always listed on the babyface. He was tweener.
I think what it was he was anti-establishment.
Yes.
He was anti-Vince, which made him.
Same with Punk. Punk was the same way. That's what helped get him over. I mean, granted, a lot of the time he was portrayed as a heel, but when he went on that skyrocketing run and he was breaking walls because he was doing more shoot style promos and stuff like that, and really blurring the lines of, is what he's talking about like real life stuff, or is this still scripted, or what? You know, when he was doing that and he was doing the pipe bombs, like, yeah, he was definitely going against the company, and people loving it.
Yeah.
People were eating it up. But no,
people love anti-establishment stuff.
Yes,
you know,
and so I think
they really do.
Just to finish on this, I think, LA Zoe Stark. I think they just need to team her with someone a bit better than Trish, because Trish isn't always there too, and that's obviously not helping. I'd rather see her teamed up with Natty and let Natty, you know, help her and bring her along.
And let her have fun. I think let her have fun.
Let her just be herself.
Let her be that cocky, vapid, you know.
Yes.
Because you were right. I think 2 weeks ago you said she very much a Paris Hilton type. But give her a pocket poodle. I don't give a shit.
Yep. Yep. You know, go over with her. You know, work with her on her promo, but let her, you know,
let her do it freely. Okay.
Yeah, let her use her own wording, I guess you could say. Let her, you know, her own verbiage, and then you can say, all right, yep, that works. And look, can we just add this?
Okay, you're cocky. You're talking down to the rest of the females, not only in the wrestlers, but the entire arena. Do it. Just do whatever you say, whatever you got to say.
And
make sure you make these points, and in the end, you're going to call this person out.
Yeah,
done.
Exactly. And as for LA Knight, strike while the fire's burning. Chuck, like Mark Henry said, chuck the gasoline on him, have him win this Money in the Bank, and then I dare say, because at the moment I think he's still on the heel side of things, so he'll probably likely go after Seth. Would be the more logical option there. I don't see him going after Roman, but no. And then I'd have him be the one to defeat Seth. Obviously, it's going to be a heel that's going to take the title off Seth anyway. Why not be LA Knight? Give him a run. Give him a run and run with it, because now's the time to do it. Now's the time to definitely do it. And I hope WWE realizes what they've got with him, because, as I said, he's really an amazing talent. All round amazing talent, and it's very.
By the way, are we going to talk about Money in the Bank at all tonight, or is that for next week?
No, that we'll leave that one for next week. Yeah, because we got Forbidden Door. We're going to finish with.
There's something I want to say about so much. I called last week or 2 weeks ago.
But no, like you don't get talent like him growing on trees, where you've got a great. In-ring talent, but also a great talent on the microphone that can tell a story. And, you know, he can be put in there, as I said, and carry guys and make guys look good, but then he makes himself look freaking $1 million too. So market him, get him out there too, doing promotional work and stuff like that.
But like Mark Henry said, he needs to go be knocking on Triple H's door. He needs to be knocking whoever's in charge, because we really don't know who the hell's in charge.
No. Hey, Tony, the countdown man's joined us. Hey, Tony, love is in the air. Congratulations, brother. Again, I'm so happy for you, man. You and Prey. So it's that's great to see. Great to see. Loving the gaming community, folks. But moving on to our we're going back in time here with this next topic before we get into the Forbidden Door talk. Only because Kevin, it's been brought to light again with Kevin Nash, had an interview recently on the early days of the NWO and how it actually came together in WCW. He even went on to mention that it would have failed before it even got going if Hulk Hogan was not on board. So we're going to talk about the rise and the fall of the NWO, and as we know, the professional wrestling industry was hot in the 90s when you had the Attitude Era and WCW, and they're battling away, and WCW was kicking WWE's ass for, 80-something odd weeks. And there was a lot of memorable time. It underwent a boom period in the mid to late 90s. And a huge part of kicking that off, apart from DX in WWF at the time, was the rise of the NWO in WCW. And speaking on his podcast, Kevin Nash, Click This it's called. So if you haven't checked that out, go and check out Kevin's podcast. He was a founding member of the NWO, and he described just how the group actually first came together. He went on to say we had like 8 or 9 weeks, whatever it was, he can't exactly remember 8 or 9 weeks, that Scott and him were showing up. For Bash of the Beach, we made the match, the 3-on-3. And from there, we had a couple of weeks where we teased who was going to be the third man, which was huge. And of course, anybody but Hulk wouldn't have been as special. So he also talked about how incredible it was that the timing had worked out that allowed himself and Hall to leave WWE for the WCW at the same time Hogan was available to return because he was returning from injury. The Hall of Famer then recalled Bischoff pitching the NWO idea for the first time. He went on to say, Bischoff came to my house and he stayed for a day or two. The former WWE WCW star recalled having Bischoff over for dinner at his home, while the next night the two went out to a gentleman's club to have some drinks and discuss Bischoff's idea for Nash and Hall's introduction to the WCW universe. And as we know, they were just showing up randomly on Nitros in the crowd initially, and that's how they got introduced. And people were like, hang on, aren't you signed to WWF? And you WWF guys, like, what are you doing? So they had people curious as to what was going on. So him and Eric went out and they had some cocktails, and Bischoff pitched the idea to him. He said he was very animated about it. So he goes, I'm listening to him going, look, this worked in Japan, that worked in Japan. He had way more vision and way more expectations than I did. Nash himself said he had concerns, as he knew the debut of himself and Hall had to be handled very carefully, but eventually came to understand Bischoff's vision. From there, it was just a matter of making sure Hogan was actually on board for the debut, which was actually, at that point, far from a done deal at the time, because people had tried to get Hulk to turn heel before, and he wasn't receptive to it. So they thought, Bischoff and Hall and Nash thought they were going to have a little bit of trouble with it. But when we pitched the finish, obviously for Bash at the Beach that year, we had no idea if Hulk was going to jump on. The ratings, though, started going through the roof, and we started beating WWF. At that point, especially once we uncovered the Ark of the Covenant contract he had, it was like, wow, to me. Conceptually at the time, I'm thinking, he's a smart dude, man. He's going to jump on this. He's got to have a 50% merchandise deal. And little did anybody know, he got everybody's merchandise money. So, despite Nash's memory, too, or possibly what Bischoff represented to him at the time, it was actually Larry Zbyszko, Yes, the living legend himself, who came up with many of the initial ideas for the NWO, including the name. Bischoff would later come to realise that Zbyszko came up with the term just a few years back before he sort of envisioned the idea and took it further. So as we know, it started as a three-man band, and Bischoff kind of still played as the WCW, exec initially, and I think they one episode, if I remember correctly, they power bombed him. I think Nash power bombed him through the
I vaguely recall that. Yes.
Yep. Hey, what's good, Sour Blow? And so I think it wasn't long after that Bischoff, of course, joined in as like their manager, their mouthpiece, I guess you could say. And even with the way they did it at Bash at the Beach, like it was the thing that, as we remember, that shocked the world. It shocked the wrestling universe. No one in their wildest dreams thought Hulk Hogan was going to be the bad guy. He'd been Hulkamania and the good guy, the red and yellow, for so long. But they had a good rise, man. They when they formed, I think it was 1996 that they formed the actual group. I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was.
It was. It's all, yeah.
Yeah, so they formed it in 96, and it obviously ran till WCW's end, and they had a few iterations, as we know, and they even split the group at one point with the Wolfpack. But I mean, what was your fondest memories? And with the, we'll get into the fall in a little bit, but what was your fondest memories of the NWO when they were riding high?
I mean, I don't remember matches and stuff like that. I'm not good at those kind of details, but I do remember it was. I liked watching Hulk go dark. I liked that whole era with Nash. Which
Yeah.
I don't remember who all the members were. I know Nash was, because wasn't it that it wasn't because Nash was who was Diesel at one point, right? Was that Nash or was that one else?
Yep, that was Kevin Nash. Yep.
Yeah, so Razor Ramon and all those guys. See, I like those guys. Rip Razor, who we lost, I think, last year. So yeah, I don't remember matches, but I do remember they were always fun to watch. They were always, why they were all fun to watch? Because they all had strong personalities. There was no one voice that spoke for them all. They all did their own talking, in and out of the ring.
Exactly.
Not one of them was bad on the mic. Not one of them.
No. That was good. I mean, I thought, because I ended up having, if you remember, Sean Waltman, before he went back to WWF and joined DX. He's like one of the very few that was in both NWO and DX. He was in there as Six. That was his name in WCW. Yeah. And I liked that. I liked that quartet. I liked Hogan, Hall, Nash, and Waltman with Bischoff, as I said, as their manager. And I didn't think they really needed to bloat it, and I think it did get bloated. But it was great. I mean, I think it was perfect for Hulk's career, because I think he was waning down as a babyface. Like, I think people were kind of getting sick of him as a he'd been a babyface since the 80s. Like, he had been a babyface for so long, and I wouldn't say he was on the verge of getting stale, because it was still Hulk Hogan, but that fire of his babyface run was slowly starting to die out, and I think this gave him another surge of energy. And
I think he needed to change too, because remember, wasn't that about the time that he kind of started to throw his weight around in the locker room too? So, but that's a whole nother issue. That's that. No, he did, and as I said, it's still to this day one of the best angles that they pulled off in wrestling and best groups. And as I said, it went through. We started with the New World Order. Then they split, and they had NWO Hollywood, which he led, and you had the NWO Wolfpack, which was the red and the black that Nash led. Right.
Then they had NWO Elite and NWO B Team, and then NWO 2000. As I said, went through many iterations, and I think where they kind of went wrong with it is it got too bloated because
Yeah, I think they should have stopped at Wolfpack and the Hogan because those were the two strongest groups.
yeah,
Those were
yeah. And as I said, I think they should have stopped. Like I don't know why they added Randy Savage to the group. Like in some ways he fit, but him and Hogan were rivals for so long. I just was like, eh.
right.
And then they even did the same thing with Bret Hart. I was like, nah, he doesn't really fit the NWO.
No, he doesn't.
I was
he
annoyed.
had no business being as part of the NWO. He
I was
really
annoyed
didn't,
when they did have the Wolfpack and they had Sting join NWO Wolfpack. I was like, he
Yeah.
had fought against the NWO for so long. It just doesn't make sense. Like, what are we doing here? And I think it got so bloated because you had guys like Scott Norton join the group. You had Buff Bagwell join the group. You had Rick Rude was in the Kurt Hennig was in a part of the group as well.
And some of that I could see, but part of my problem was they never gave a reason for some of these switches. They
No.
never gave, I joined because I joined. Okay, well that doesn't make any sense. See, that's where some of that slow burn that we get nowadays would have come in handy. Give us a reason why Rick Rude went over there. Definitely give us a reason why Randy Savage would go, and join up with his main rival. Same with Sting.
Yep.
Why would they switch?
Yeah, that's right, Yobi. So you had, in the beginning, after those initial four, as well as Bischoff, then you had Vincent, which was Ted DiBiase's longtime assistant, join. The Giant, the Giant was a part of NWO. Bagwell, Fake Sting. I remember Fake Sting. Real name.
Yeah.
His real name's Jeff Farmer, and he actually made a bigger name for himself in Japan when he left. You had Miss Elizabeth, obviously. Brian Knobs and Jerry Sags were in the early part. Yeah, they had the referee Nick Patrick, Mike Wallstreet, who was formerly known as...
Yeah. I remember when Nick Patrick, the referee, officially became a wrestler. I remember that whole turn. That was a fun little storyline. That was
Scott Norton. Mike Wallstreet, that was formerly IRS and the father of Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt. Rick Rude, Scotty Steiner. Now, Scott Steiner, I thought, when he went to the big Papa Pump phase, thought he actually did fit the NWO. I thought he was actually a nice addition. But, again, like, they just got so bloated. Like, you had Stevie Ray, like Booker T's brother, even join up there at one stage. I think Disco Inferno was a part of it at one stage. And again, they just had too many. Jeff Jarrett was another one. I think he was part of NWO 2000.
See, and by 2000, they should have stopped it. They should have stopped long before that.
It ran its course.
Yeah.
I think the high point for them was 96 through to 98. They had a good 2-year run with it. And by 99, when Hogan was starting to slowly get pushed out of WCW by Vince Russo, they should have left it.
Vince, I'm going to destroy wrestling Russo. Hey, I watched a documentary, one of the, the Dark Side of the Ring episodes last week while I was in Canada. Russo has a very selective memory. Let me just say that.
Yeah. He only remembers like anything good, but anything good he did, it was when he was under Vince McMahon.
Yeah. But he only remembers, even though you got 16 other guys going, Vince Russo with a dickwad, he's going, I don't remember it that way. Like, dude.
And he was, Yobi. Scott Norton was so underutilized in WCW. Again.
Yeah.
Another guy. He actually ended up going over to Japan and becoming a part of NWO Japan, which I actually thought was a really good off-branch of the NWO and worked well in New Japan. But he was a beast. Absolute beast. As I said, there were some people that fit the NWO, but there was some... And I just think they allowed the group They should have kept the group like they did with DX. DX, they kept it at, what was it, 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah.
And I think that is fine for a group. But when you start getting a group and you start getting over 10, it's very hard to present them all.
Yeah.
You know,
I think part of it was because they were trying to push the WCW versus WWE thing. They were, us versus them type of situation, It was organization versus organization beyond the NWO.
Yeah.
It's like, stop it.
And it's funny because when they first started it, the NWO was originally portrayed as a separate entity from WCW. I loved how they did that. And they used to have their own pay-per-view. I think they did one Nitro where it was like an NWO version of Nitro.
I think, I seem to recall that. I think it's even available on Peacock.
Yep. And then I think it was sold out. Was an NWO pay-per-view initially.
Yep.
And, it was, they had really cool propaganda style, vignettes that they aired. And product commercials even. Like Bischoff had some of the coolest commercials where he's on I think a Harley Davidson. And he's got that, his hat backwards, bad boy sort of look. And Bischoff was brilliant, man, with that. Like, he was literally...
I gotta say, Bischoff was very good at what he did. He was very good at advertising his brand and talking and pushing his brand. He's much better than Vince McMahon ever was. Yeah. As far as that role goes,
And I love the when they used to do the following announcement has been paid for the New World Order. Yeah. And it was always cool, And so, you had Kevin Nash did a lot behind the scenes too when it came to the NWO and the with the storylines and the writing and stuff like that. Scott Hall, of course, is credited with the group's trademark hand signals, which is obviously a click hand signal.
Right.
That's where it started with him, Nash, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. But and then it was Terry Taylor, WCW's chief booker at the time, is the one who came up with the popular catchphrase, when you NWO, you NWO for life, right?
Yep.
And scripted that in. I mean, like, they went on to have some great feud. Like, the whole feud between Hogan and Sting was, like, where WCW was in its prime. Like, that whole back and forth, him being WCW's, shining beacon and taking on the whole group. I even remember the NWO was in the ring once. You probably remember this too, Paul. And a whole bunch of Stings came down from the crowd. And then people were trying to...
Oh, yeah, that was awesome. That was amazing.
And people were trying to figure out which is the real Sting. And then the real Sting was even behind a mask himself. And they're all beating up all the Stings, the NWO. And then he grabs, I think it was either Bagwell or Six or someone at the time he grabs first. And then he gives them a Scorpion Death Drop, and then he takes off the mask. And they're like, there he is, there's the real Sting. And he surprised everyone. But, like, that was just brilliant storytelling. Absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
When he had the crow, and everybody was getting up in the rafters. Like, that just wrote itself,
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, the... as time went on.
Mysterious Sting was always my favorite.
Yeah. Definitely. But I mean, as I said, they had a really good run, and as I said, I think the demise more so comes from, two things. I think it was from having trying to overdo it and stretch it out, over bloating the NWO roster, and Bischoff started to get burnt out, so he no longer had that great storytelling in him to keep it sort of going. And I think once they split it for a while, and you had the two factions going at it, you had NWO Hollywood and NWO Wolfpack. Once they ran that storyline through and they all joined back up, I think that was the start, like the beginning of the end, so to speak. You know, the beginning of the end, because it just wasn't what it was. And then, you know, Hogan had too much sway backstage, and even Kevin Nash started getting a little bit annoyed with him because he constantly wanted the world title, and like Nash is like, well, you know, what about us? You know, what about me or Scott having a world title run? Hogan just wanted to kind of hog that spotlight. But that was also Bischoff's fault too, because where he was brilliant in a lot of areas, where he actually went wrong is, and even it even comes out today because Bischoff's even brought it back because he regrets a lot of that. Is he kind of let the wrestlers run the asylum, you know, inmates run the asylum, and Tony Khan does a little bit of that too, you know, and see that's why Vince has stayed in business for so many years, because there's always been a boss, right, in WWE, and yes, he's allowed certain superstars once they've got to a certain level, like a Austin, like a Rock, like an Undertaker, like a Triple H, like a Kurt Angle, to have input in their characters and say in their characters. He's never allowed any of them to have the power to go, I'm not losing this match, or I'm winning this match, or that world title is mine.
I would say that the closest we've gotten to that exception is if he decides he likes you even beyond if he decides he's going to support you, then a lot of times you'll suggest something to him and he'll go with it. To me, that a lot of that's the same thing. You know, he does pick his favorites. He still picks his favorites. He definitely does that. You know,
but even like another good time with the NWO is when they had when Rowdy Piper turned up, and he was a babyface at the time, and he didn't change anything about his character. He was just directing his verbiage towards the heels, of course. And him and Hogan, you know, kept going back and forth over the title, and that was fun to watch, you know. And as I said, they had a lot of good times.
Even though he was supposed to be a babyface, I never considered Roddy Piper a babyface. He's one of those tweeners.
Yeah.
He was probably one of the,
And see, the Japanese version was started by an old school Japanese wrestler by the name of Masahiro Chono, right, who came over to WCW. He was actually a part of the NWO in WCW, and then they only had him for, you know, a relatively short period of time. But he, after joining the group, ended up becoming the leader of NWO Japan, which was basically considered the sister stable, right? And Big Bubba and Scott Norton defected to the group, right? They left WCW, went over to NWO Japan. And I think NWO Japan ended up having a better run after that they were created than what NWO was, you know, in WCW then by that point. But, I mean, you had some great segments. I mean, we all remember when Hall and Nash were going on a rampage, and they were backstage, and Hall got Rey Mysterio and used him like a javelin and threw him against the truck, you know. Then you had, they constantly attacked Diamond Dallas Page because they tried multiple times to convince him to join the group, and he wouldn't join the group. And so they attacked him in the end of it. There was one time he was considering when it was split, and they had the NWO Wolfpack, and I remember him standing on stage, and he was about to give his answer as if he was going to join, and then NWO Hollywood attacked him, so he didn't get to actually join. So it was cool, but basically, the NWO Wolfpack Sting just reverted back to Surfer Sting in my eyes. He was just more animated and stuff, and I was like, nah, I prefer this darker Sting, man. He just, you know, but the NWO, I will say, as again, it did wonders for some too. Like it did wonders for Kurt Hennig, like once he crossed over from WWF from being Mr. Perfect. Initially, they had him teamed in for a short period with the Four Horsemen. Then they had a War Games match where he turned on Ric Flair and the Horsemen in that, and joined the NWO. And I think that, you know, added to a bit more to his character and got him over in WCW. And
Yep.
it did wonders again for Scott Steiner, who, after splitting with Rick, and they had him turn on Rick and sort of take him out, and then he bleached his hair and turned into Big Papa Pump, skyrocketed him as a singles competitor. So, there was a lot of great times, a lot of good that came from it. And as I said, they had a really good maybe 2.5 year run, you could say, before they started to really, wane and not be the same. And they, as I said, they tried keeping it alive. As we know, they tried in WWE to keep it alive when they crossed over. But by that time, I thought, look, these three guys are all too bloody old. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you're not going to get what Vince wasn't going to get what he thought what he thought he was going to get. And I think he had in his mind that I could recreate what Eric Bischoff, created and started, and it just never paid off. It really didn't.
No, because you didn't have the personality types that that was lightning in a bottle.
It was.
To get Kevin and Scott and Hulk and that was lightning in a bottle. You aren't going to get that again. You have to.
Exactly. And so again another.
Yeah.
I was just going to say.
Let me just real quick, and from a football coaching point of view, I review as the coach who tries to build the team he wants out of the players he has, even if they're not suited for it, or the coach that builds the team based on the players he does have. You know, it's like you can't make a team you want if you don't have the talent there.
Then
You have to work with what you got. Yeah.
Do you remember there was a guy in NWO for a little while, and I don't know if too many fans know that there was a guy called the Disciple, right?
Oh, vaguely remember him. Vaguely,
Yes.
Very vaguely.
Who is actually quite a good friend of Hogan's in real life. And before he went in WCW as the Disciple, he was known, and probably this is his more well-known name, as Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Oh, yeah.
That's who the Disciple.
Brutus was fun to watch.
He was.
Fun. He was part of a tag team for a while, right? He was.
He was.
Who was? Wasn't he the British? Well, he wasn't one of the British Bulldogs.
No. That was Davey Boy and
Right.
and Dynamite Kid. I'm pretty sure.
Right. But I know Brutus was part of a tag team for a while.
He was. He was.
A very successful tag team, if I recall.
But yeah, I mean, you had Conan was another one, and I think the NWO did wonders for him too, getting him over in the United States, being a Mexican wrestler. And he came into his own before, obviously, creating his own group when Rey Mysterio took his mask off and went heel. So that was really, really cool to see as well. But again, yeah, where it really the turning point, if you want to say there was a turning point, was what they referred to, and we all probably remember it as the finger poke of doom. Right? And for those that don't remember it, it was it was a Nitro, I think, in November or December of late 1998, and Hogan accepted Nash's request and took Goldberg's place in the main event. And in the match, after the bell rang to begin the bout, Hogan poked Nash in the chest, after which Nash fell to the mat. Hogan covered Nash for the win and became champion again.
Yeah.
And then that's when they celebrated, and that was the end of the NWO Wolfpack, and revealing that the entire NWO split was all just a conspiracy. The group had reunited then under the new label NWO Elite. And that's really when things started coming apart.
Yeah.
Because you had a bunch of undercard guys like Brian Adams, Stevie Ray, Horace Hogan, which was portraying the nephew of Hulk Hogan, who really had no place being there. And I think that's why they ended up creating this little side team out of the NWO Elite called the NWO B team, which was, Horace, Vincent, Brian Adams, Stevie Ray, all the low to mid card guys, and it just got
anytime you're on
stupid.
anything called a B team, you know it's not going to work out. Okay?
No, and so it was just stupid, and it just got really ridiculous from there on out. Even the 2000 versions where you had Nash, Hall, Jeff Jarrett, and Bret Hart, and instead of going by the black and white, they went black and silver, and it just was not the same. It really was not the same. And that's when Russo was in then still too, and he wrote out every top guy off of television. Like he wrote Hogan off, he wrote Sting off, he wrote Nash off, he wrote Goldberg off. And I'm like, how are you surviving as a company when all these big name guys you've written them out of TV, off of TV? Like what's going on? And so that was really the demise. But again, without the NWO, DX probably doesn't take off as well as it probably did, and that kind of benefited them, even though they were on separate, wrestling promotions. But the NWO,
The only thing I didn't appreciate about the DX is I was working at junior high at the time.
Right.
And having a kid slap their crotch and yell, "Stuck it" at me every once in a while was really kind of annoying.
Yeah. He was Yobi. I even remember him when he was a part of Raven's Flock, Horace Hogan. That was before he got brought into the NWO. And you had like Raven, him, Billy Kidman, who was the big guy? Van Hammer. Like, they had a really interesting quartet. So they were. Oh, Scotty Riggs was another one. But no, like again, the NWO was great for the wrestling business. It really helped WCW and pushed them to beating Raw in the ratings, and
it helped WWE at that time. It really did.
It did.
It elevated them during their time period.
It did. It was fantastic to see, man, and what a ride it was. As I said, I think they tried too many iterations after that initial 2.5 year great run. Once you start knowing that it's just not feeling it anymore, and the fans aren't feeling it, and you're having to add too many people and create too many different versions of it, I think that's when it's time to sort of put it up on the shelf. The shelf life's expired now, and it's had its run, and it did what it did. And again, it was just a shame because Bischoff was pretty much a creative behind it, and once he started getting burned out, that's when it really started again falling apart. And he went on holidays, and when he went on holidays for a break, that's when they brought Russo in, and the rest is history as we know it. That was the slow start of the death of WCW, and but it was good times, man. It was good times. It's good to reflect back on, and they were a big part of why the 90s had a boom in wrestling. I don't think the 90s have a boom in wrestling without the NWO. They played a huge factor. Yeah, a huge factor.
I think they helped push it. I don't think Goldberg could have carried that period by himself. He was a big part of that period. But
yeah. Without the NWO versus Sting, that was the really big main story. Yeah. And they did, as I said, they did so well because they had Sting up in the rafters for a whole year, not wrestling, just being spooky, just being mysterious for a whole year. But it worked. It really worked. Now, if you had tried to do that with anybody else, it probably doesn't work. But it worked, and he made it work. And it's just fantastic time. Definitely memorable period, So it's moving on, of course, to our final topic of the evening. The upcoming Forbidden Door pay-per-view this weekend. We're going to do a bit of going over all the cards so far and a bit of speculation. Of course, of what we might see outcome-wise. But so far, we've got 4 with a potential 5 confirmed matches. So the 4 matches that are definitely confirmed at the moment is Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. Bryan Danielson taking on Kazuchika Okada just in a singles match, which should be a match for the ages. Sonata is defending his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against Jack Perry. Of course, MJF will be defending his AEW World Championship against Hiroshi Tanahashi. And apparently, a rumoured match to take place is possibly Suzuki maybe taking on John Moxley in some kind of hardcore match, which would be
interesting.
Interesting to see. Hey, hey brother, hey PK, what's good, bro? But yeah, it will.
I think we're not going to know about the final matches, maybe even until Saturday night, because they want to, they got a new show to promote.
I think there'll be a couple more matches added to it. As we know with AEW pay-per-views, they usually do 8 or 9 bloody matches on the damn thing. And so there's at least another 4 matches and I think there'll be, out of those 4 matches, there'll at least be 1 females match. Which at the moment, I think might actually be Willow defending her New Japan Strong title. So that'll be interesting to see who they put her up against. Yobi says in the chat before we go any further, he goes, "Wait, hold on, Paul. What they do to you?"
What's he talking about?
It must have been with what you said earlier. With what you said earlier when you're being a janitor, back in that days.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, "What? Wait, what did they do to you?" But out of the matches we got so far, MJF versus Tanahashi is going to be interesting because Tanahashi, he's not the same wrestler he once was. He's obviously coming towards the tail end of his career, but I think he brings something a bit different to the table in a match with MJF. We all know that obviously MJF's not going to drop the title here. That can definitely be said and stated. But it's going to be very interesting. I think Tanahashi's got a style that MJF's not used to. And because Tanahashi has been basically the face, you could say, of New Japan for so long, I think the story kind of writes itself because MJF over the past coming weeks, anytime New Japan's brought up, he's like, "No, it stinks. It's just a big indie federation. It's crap. It's not on my level. They couldn't lace my boots." Right. So that I think will be interesting. Sonata versus Jack Perry, I think is going to be a 5-star match. I really do. I think it's going to elevate Jack Perry to a whole new level.
I think, and he deserves to be elevated. I mean,
yes.
He really does.
Yes. I don't see, obviously, Sonata losing the IWGP Heavyweight Championship this soon, let alone to a AEW talent right now, unless it was to Kenny Omega. But it should be a really, really good match. Danielson versus Okada, I think, has the potential to be one of the matches that steals the night. Like, these are 2 of the best wrestlers of the last decade or more. It's just going to be insane. It is literally going to be insane. And it's great to see that they're doing this now instead of waiting even a few more years because they're both at the top of their game. They really are.
Right.
It'll be fantastic. I think though, Okada might get the win in this. I really do because I'm looking at the card, and as I said, MJF. So that'll be will win his match. No doubt that'll be a win for them. AEW side. Sonata will get a win for New Japan. I think Okada also gets a win for New Japan because they'll probably split the win-loss ratio here between the 2 companies. And Okada's still a few years younger than Danielson too. So I think this just helps add to Okada's legacy to take on someone of Danielson's caliber. And the hard one for me is Ospreay versus Omega. Now, I think Ospreay, they might have him beat Kenny and take back the United States Heavyweight Championship. And the only reason I say that is obviously Kenny's no longer full-time in New Japan.
Right.
But at least he is willing to go there and he will defend the title and stuff. But besides that, every time that they've met previously, Kenny Omega's won. So I think it's time for Ospreay to be given a win over Kenny. Again, these are two of probably the best wrestlers in the ring of their generation themselves. They're right there with Danielson and Okada of in-ring. Again, this would probably be about a 10-star match between these two, like their last few encounters have been.
Right.
It's going to be fantastic, but I see Ospreay coming out on top. So what's your thoughts? Well, at least these 4 matches that are definitely confirmed. Let me get your thoughts on
I pretty much agree with you on every take, actually.
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah.
And which
So it's going to be real easy.
which match though are you most looking forward to?
I like you said, I think the Jungle Boy match is going to be fire. I think
Yeah.
I think that's going to be, for me, that's going to be the most fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I think
to see what happens there.
Because they're both young guys, him and Sonata.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Sonata.
High energy, young, so I think they're really going to go at it.
Yep, indeed. And I remember seeing Sonata when he was still even a lot younger than what he is now. And he was he came for a stint over to the US and he was wrestling in Impact Wrestling for a while. And he was getting over there. They just never done anything. He was one of those guys that got over and they never really, came into a company and never really done much with him. He's done some things also.
Yeah, sometimes they just don't know what to do with them.
No. And it seems to be that way with this high-end Japanese talent. Like, I mean,
right.
You look what WWE's done with Shinsuke, for example, right?
Yeah.
There has been...
He's fun to... I enjoy him. Every time I see him step up, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Here's the thing for me. He's gotten over so many times in WWE since he's came in there. He's fire and hot right now again. And there's been a few times where I've said, you need to pull the trigger and give this man a world title run, right? And they haven't done it. And it's really annoyed me that they haven't done it because he was a main eventer in New Japan. And they've used him as a mid-carder, basically, in WWE. And I didn't think that was right, considering he's probably, arguably, I will say, I'll go as far as this, arguably the best Japanese talent that they've brought into WWE.
And when I hate to say this, when he works the mic and stuff, you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Roddy.
Yeah.
He just likes to have fun with his opponents.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
He's basically a Japanese version of him. And
Yeah.
I know people bring up, look, WWE had Tajiri. They also had at one stage, he was a part of a tag team called Kai and Tai. He's back in New Japan Wrestling now. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. But look, I think he's Kaz something. But they've had those two guys. They were never on, and they still aren't. They just weren't on Shinsuke's level. And that's why I would like to hope that if they don't start doing something with him and give him a world title run, especially while he's hot, as I like to say, strike while the iron is hot, then maybe when his contract's up, I'd love to see him either go back to New Japan or go over to AEW, where at least he will be used properly. And I could easily see, Tony Khan giving him a run as world champion in that company because, as I said, he was a main event New Japan star. He has main event written all over him. He has main event potential. He works the mic. He's great in between the ropes. He can wrestle a ground style. He can wrestle obviously the strong style as well. But he's just, again, amazing talent. I know that there's been even push from like guys like AJ Styles and that obviously who have worked with him in Japan to try and get him that main event status in WWE, but it's just never come about.
No, it was only a few weeks ago when he got my attention when he had Miz saying I got small balls or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was just hilarious. I'm like, see.
Now I don't.
That's why he reminds me of Rowdy Roddy, because he basically he fucks with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now I don't know if. Now I know he's returned CM Punk, but I don't know if he's going to be on this pay-per-view. The only reason I say I don't know is it would be such a short turn to set up a match for him, and there wouldn't be really any kind of even enough time to build some sort of story there. I know that a guy who signed, I think he's kind of signed between them because he does wrestle over in New Japan and AEW. I know because of Punk's comments last week in an interview, he ruffled the feathers of Lance Archer, big Lance Archer. And Lance Archer has called him out and said, hey, I want a match with him, but he's too scared. He won't have a match with me, and then Tony won't even put him in a match with me. I'd like to see them play off of that, because that's the only match I could see them getting together quickly, just because there's already something a little bit out there in the Twitterverse and social media, I guess you could say, where they've had their little pot shots. And it would be an interesting match, because Lance Archer, compared to him, is a giant. Lance Archer's, 6'9".
One of the friends of 4GQ TV, Carl and I, he is going to that. He's not only going to be there Wednesday at that thing, he's going to be there for the pay-per-view this weekend. And he keeps saying, well, CM's going to be there, but like you said, what match is he going to have? He might be at the arena, but I don't know that he's going to wrestle.
No, like I just can't see anything other than Lance Archer. I cannot see anything there for him. As I said, you've already got Ospreay booked with Omega. You've already got Okada booked with Danielson. You've already got Sonata booked with Jack Perry, and you've also already got Tanahashi booked with MJF, and that's 4 of your top talent New Japan guys right there gone in matches. So you really, if they're going to do something with him, I think Lance Archer makes sense. And Yobi goes, Lance Archer would destroy Punk. But
well, there's a lot of these fights that wouldn't go the way and they would go in real life. There's a lot.
But I think we'll see a tag team bout on here too. I think you might see Aussie Open, not Aussie Open, but the Kyle Fletcher teaming with what's his name? Jeff Cobb. I think you'll see them in a tag team match, probably against I dare say probably against FTR. And just to have a tag team bout on there, because there will be a tag team bout on there, no doubt. And I think that might be the matchup. But apart from that, I think we might get 1 or 2 women's matches, like I said. I think Willow will probably defend her title just because it's the New Japan Strong Women's title.
Right.
I don't know if Toni Storm will get to defend hers, but it could be a possibility they'll have both of them there. Orange Cassidy's likely to have a matchup, I dare say, against somebody.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe may get a match. I reckon he'd be fitting on this card. If you wanted to do a singles match, I'd love to see him and Jeff Cobb. If you weren't going to have Cobb in a tag team match, him and Jeff Cobb would be a absolutely tear the house down match between those two heavyweights, because they're both light-footed as well. Very light-footed, very agile for bigger guys. But yeah, I think this pay-per-view, as I said, is shaping up nicely, and this is just going to hold the championship for MJF over until they get to All In, because even though he didn't win last week because they went to a time limit draw, I think they will still find a way for Adam Cole to take him on at All In and have that as the main event. I see that happening. I see Adam Cole being the one to take the belt off of him, and because he's just not defending it as often enough, I think, as what Tony would like. He's kind of, doing the whole Roman Reigns thing, even though he hasn't even reached Roman Reigns' level yet, and I don't think that that's working in their favour doing that, because he hasn't got to that type of status yet where he can do what Roman's doing.
It makes sense for him to go, no, I'm going to hold up.
Yeah. There's a few other matches I think that'll happen, that'll get organised on Dynamite as well as Collision. Maybe the Young Bucks get a match on there. Who knows? They might be on there somewhere. You could probably do something. If they're going to do something, you know what? If they're going to,
I think they should do something with the Young Bucks. Because,
yeah, I think,
like you said, CM Punk called them out. So
yeah, I think
that's where he may not wrestle, but that's where you bring him out.
And I think there might be a matchup between AEW's Bullet Club Gold and David Finlay's New Japan Bullet Club, because they've been exchanging. Yeah, they've been exchanging words, and that group over there saying that's a fraudulent group. They're the outcasts. They're the fake group over there. And see, I just don't think Bullet Club's the same with the new version of it. I've loved every iteration. I loved, obviously, when Prince Devitt, aka Finn Balor, built it, and then he passed it over to AJ being the leader, who then passed it over to Kenny, who then passed it over to Jay White. All four of those, when those four guys have been the leader, I think Bullet Club's been quite strong. I think right now for New Japan, this is the weakest Bullet Club's ever been. It might be another case of the NWO, they're trying to drag it out too long. They should have just ended it.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, they should have just ended it because...
Sounds like history repeating itself.
Yeah. They should have just ended it, and I'm fine with Bullet Club Gold because Jay White's the leader of it, and I've already read rumours that they are going to be adding to that group, which is fine because he, as I said, he was the last great leader of Bullet Club, and I think this extends it, but in a better way because he's leader material. I like David Finlay as a wrestler, I really do, but I just don't view him as leader material, and as again, it's just a very weak group now with him and Clark Connors and a few others. It's not what it was, and they're trying to change it in their own right and have their own kind of spin on it. Like, Bullet Club for so long was like basically the new version of the NWO, and they had that takeoff like the NWO as well. Like it got just as big, and it was doing just as well. And it was basically initially they had a couple of Japanese talent sprinkled in there, but it was mostly Americans and Europeans that made up the context of Bullet Club. And so the internationals, it was like the internationals group, and they were always portrayed as the heels, obviously. So it'll be interesting. I can't wait to see Bullet Club versus Bullet Club. That could get interesting, and that might be like a multi-team, multifaceted match. I would imagine. I don't think it'll be like a singles bout. They might do like a 4-on-4 or 5-on-5. Yeah, same here, Yobi. Chris Bay in Impact is amazing, man. And I'd actually think he's one of the rumoured names to be joining Bullet Club Gold, because I know AEW does work with Impact, but I'm pretty sure his contract's up soonish. I don't know how soon, but soonish with Impact. So he might actually fully sign with AEW and actually join Jay White and the Wild Child, the as I like to call him. So it'll be interesting. They got to definitely build that group up, because you can't just have Juice Robinson and Jay White. Like that's just a two-man team. They're meant to be a group. So that'll be great. They need another, and that's what I love about AEW is they've got a few groups now. Like I think obviously the House of Black works well as a trio, / quartet with the Julia Hart, but mainly as a trio, obviously with the men. I think The Elite obviously still works, which is basically just a trio now too, just like Death Triangle works as a smaller little stable team as a trio. But I think Bullet Club Gold, I'd like to see that get to like 5-6 members. I think
I'm with you. I think 5 to 6 is the magic number for
Yep.
that stuff.
I would love to see, because they're trying to still figure out what to do by bringing him back in, Lance Archer. I think Lance Archer would be a great fit for the group as their big, giant, muscle of the group, I guess you could say. And it gives him something to do. They're a heel group. He works best as a heel. And, his mouthpiece ain't going to be around forever in Jake the Snake Roberts. But he just fits that group. I think he fits in with, Jay White and Juice, and would add another element.
I think Jake the Snake's going to try to keep that job as long as he can. And I will say that I'm glad to see Jake got himself cleaned up. Okay, as an old fan of Jake the Snake, I'm glad.
I'd have him.
He was able to.
While he's still around, I'd have him be a part of Bullet Club, like as Lance's manager. But the whole moniker of him, being a snake, like that fits in with Bullet Club. Like they're a bunch of cheating snakes, villainous snakes. So I think again that would work. Bring Chris Bay in, for like your smaller cruiserweight talent. And there you go. You got 4 guys right there. If they had Bay and Archer as well as Juice and Jay White, and maybe then add a tag team to it to finalise the 6. Because as I said, you'll have Jake as a manager type role, but I don't know what tag team. Maybe you turn the Young Bucks again, and you have the Young Bucks. Because Kenny can operate on his own. He really doesn't need to be a part of a team. And I think the Elite itself as a group's kind of run its course. So having the Young Bucks join back up with a Bullet Club would be kind of cool. And they really do work as that cocky, brash, heel tag team. So I think that would be a nice way to run it.
A lot of what they do there is going to depend on what they do with CM Punk.
Yeah. Yeah, well, at the moment...
until we know what they're going to do with him, we really have no idea what they're going to do with the rest of it.
No. And so it'll be interesting. But I at this stage, I truly believe that Punk's not going to be a part of this pay-per-view. I just can't see it. As I said, outside a match that is quickly put together with Lance Archer, I cannot see... Who else?
I could see him making an appearance to set something else up in the future.
Yeah, I could see him making an appearance, for sure. There's just nobody outside Lance Archer that I can think of at the top of my head in New Japan that you could put him in the ring with. That makes sense. Lance Archer only makes sense, as I said, because of their little back and forth recently, but I don't think they're going to get that match. The match I would love to see, but he's already shut it down. The man, Punk going against the man he stole the GTS from. But again, he came out and said Tony would have to offer him a bag, and that's just not gonna happen.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
No, what I'm saying is, what I can see is him coming out, possibly interfering with a match, starting another rivalry, starting something up that'll carry on over the next, like they do,
Yeah.
Because everybody's thinking Sam's going to, I'll tell you what, there are going to be a lot of people in Canada that are pissed if, after all the chatter, CM Punk isn't at least in the arena. Okay?
And yeah, I agree, Yobi. I think Kota Ibushi shows up at this pay-per-view. Because he's going to be that next man added to the team for this, blood and guts match between the Elite and the Blackpool Combat Club.
Yeah.
And Punk is rumoured now. I know we all knew when he came back that he was going to be. Well, they kept saying he was going to kind of be strictly mainly used with Collision, but he is rumoured to be at this week's Dynamite, and the Elite is not. Isn't that funny? So apparently, I was reading the other day that when Punk's on Collision, the Elite will not be at Collision. When Punk's on Dynamite, the Elite won't be on Dynamite. So they'll do a swap. So
okay,
yeah,
that's just weird. That's just weird.
They have to keep them all separate at the moment while there's legal stuff going on. Unfortunately, because Punk has out of all the Elite, Punk's biggest issue and biggest problem is with Adam Page. He actually, before that scuffle, was getting along with both the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. And the person he has the biggest issue with is Adam Page. It's just because of stuff that was said in a promo and that upset him. And, yeah, there's a lot of heat there. So I think over time, once they're the thing that's holding it up is lawyers. Like, the Young Bucks or Kenny, one of the two, has been rumoured that one of those wants to sit down and have a talk and apologise. Punk wants to sit down and apologise, but their lawyers, both parties' lawyers, aren't allowing them to talk. So it sucks. If I was them, I'd tell the lawyers to get stuffed, and so they could just sit down.
The lawyers are getting a payday out of this.
And so I'd tell them to get stuff. Look, if they do want to sit down and just hash it out and apologise for each of that where they went wrong, what caused it, then let them do it, because that's a good thing, and it's only going to benefit the locker room. Because right now, having to keep them separate on separate shows and keep them apart, it might be all right and easy to do for a short period of time, but you're not going to be able to continuously be able to do that. Like, okay, well, if he's showing up on Dynamite, you can't, but you will be able to be on Collision this week, and he won't be at Collision, and then the following week, you're back on Dynamite, he's back on, and keep them on separate shows. It's just, not going to work for too long. It'll only work for so long.
It's counterproductive to the programming.
Exactly. They have to keep them separate until the legal proceeding. But as I said, if they're willing to talk it out themselves, I think they just need, I don't know how it all works or how they can do it, but they just need to tell their lawyers, look, we think we can sort this out without going to court. I know they could actually turn around and say that, right? I know that it would still cost them a bit of money because they are paying for lawyers and that, but if both parties really want to work it out, then let them work it out. As I said, the only one that's not going to work out their issues is Punk and Page. Those two right now have this deep hate towards each other. Things have been said, and I think things were said again recently, and Punk kind of came back at him with some stuff too, and so that's going to take a bit more time to sort that out, but I think this other situation can really be put to bed. I think I said on the last time me and you were talking on this podcast, Paul, that really the person that needs to do the most apologising in all of this, who started that whole brawl, is Ace Steel. I know he's Punk's best friend, but he put Punk in a real bad position. He also spat on one of the Young Bucks or Kenny, one of the two, which was disgusting. His behaviour as a backstage higher up and part of creative was disgusting. And he really needs to not only apologise to the Young Bucks and Kenny, but he needs to apologise to Punk for putting his best friend in the position that he has. And
I think he needs to apologise to the owners. I mean, he needs to apologise to everybody involved in real life. You'd lose your job for shit like that.
And he did. He only got his job back because of Phil, because of Punk. So he has that to be thankful for. So I think he needs to apologise to everybody. He needs to apologise to even the locker room as a whole, because, as I said, he was one of the top guys backstage, right? And you got to be acting a certain way. You can't be acting like that. Like, you might act, the way he acted, excluding the spitting part, which I think was just disgusting, but the way he was acting, you kind of would expect from a younger wrestler, like, that's still learning how to act backstage and how politics and all that work. You'd expect that from that. You wouldn't expect it from, I guess, one of the people in the higher ups and the executives, or whatever like that. And and again,
and in today's world, you just don't spit on anybody.
No,
you just don't
no.
do it.
And
that's actually a crime. That's actually a crime.
That's the matchup I was trying to think of earlier too. While we're still on the subject of Punk, Kenta is the guy because Kenta was doing the go to sleep before Punk, and Punk's even admitted in many interviews that he stole it from Kenta. But Kenta is adamant that he will never wrestle Punk unless he's paid handsomely for the match, and he doesn't believe Tony Khan will pocket up with the cash to make the match happen. But if it was to happen, it would be a really, really cool match. It would really be a cool match. Those two have had a bit of a back and forth for years. There's mutual respect there, but they've had a bit of a back and forth for years. And, you know, if you're going to do it, you want to do it soon before Punk totally loses his in-ring ability, you know. So, but it would be good.
Like you said, though, Punk looks good in ring-wise. Punk looks really good right now.
He looks in, as I said, when I seen him on Collision and seen him actually in the ring, he looks in better shape than what he was prior. And I think he's definitely been hit, not only hitting the gym, but I think he'd been, once he obviously could from his injury, he'd been hitting, you know, the ring and getting in there and getting into ring shape, because before the injury, I was like, who the hell is this guy? This is not CM Punk. Like, he looked broken down. He looked totally out of ring shape. I think he even admitted in an interview he wasn't in the best of ring shape. But this match on Collision, it was like he took it back to WWE version of Punk. And I'm like, this is what you need to
maybe that injury woke him up. Said, if I'm going to do this, I need to be in shape.
Yeah. And so, now he looks like he could do an Iron Man match, put it this way. That he looks like he could easily do it. Fantastic shape, and I hope he stays injury-free because, you know, again, he puts asses in seats. He's still a name. People still turn up to see him. The crowd, before even Collision had even got started, was chanting his name. And they do. That's not just in Chicago. They do that everywhere. That, you know, he is a loved talent. And he's going to help put asses in seats for this All-In pay-per-view. He really is. He sells tickets, and it's good to have him back. So, again, I don't think he's going to have a match, but it'd be good for him to come in. You know what? If they can manage to convince Kenta, maybe he sets that match up for the future sometime. Comes out, calls Kenta out, and says, let's have a battle and see who really is the master of the GTS. You know?
You know, they could set it up for the August pay-per-view, whatever that is. You know, whatever, you know.
Exactly. You know, or Punk could even, because, you know, Tony's fine with these wrestlers going to wrestle at New Japan, and that maybe Punk goes over there, which would be really good for his career, really, and takes him on over in Japan. Well, heck, turn it into a series of matches. You could have a...
And as we saw a few weeks ago, they're not afraid to do big title stuff in the middle of the week either.
No.
Yeah.
No, exactly. You're not wrong. But, no, look out for Forbidden Door, folks, this coming weekend, because it's going to be a fire pay-per-view. And, it should be quite the interesting night with a lot of 5-star and 10-star matches, put it that way. And before we sign off tonight, just also remember, folks, next week, just towards the end of next week, I think Thursday or the Friday, AEW's video game, Fight Forever, is out. It will be releasing. So if you haven't pre-ordered that and you got the money there, get onto that, because I do now know that it's definitely not, as Yobi had evidently pointed out over the coming weeks, it's not going into Game Pass, but it's there. It's another alternative, and it looks like it's going to be a fun game. So jump on that. But let's start with the outros now. Paul, did you want to let the fine folks know where they can find you, sir?
No. You can find me at Twitter, CerebralPaul1, Twitch at CerebralPaul. You can find me tomorrow afternoon at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Xbox Ambassador channel. Don't know what I'm playing yet, but I will be there doing Gaming Differently with Super Paul like I am every Tuesday. at that time. Then I have Retro Renegades Tuesday night. Wednesday, I'm back here with Spooky, and we are talking with the Backlog Bastards. And then Thursday, I have 4GQ TV. Friday, I have the Doomsayers Network. That's it. That's all I need. I'm tired.
we're gonna be sending him to all these pay-per-views coming up to. Nah.
Yeah.
We wish. Have a man on the scene.
If I pick it up, maybe next week we'll do some live gameplay of the AEW Forever on next week's show.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, no, that'll be good to do.
Yeah.
Of course, you can find me on all social medias at SpookyTBG, as well as the Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam as well, if you want to find me on there and have some games. Other than that, you can find me here with Paul and our brother Josh. Shout out to Josh. He had a commitment with his dad this evening. He was doing a Father's Day dinner with him a day later. So shout out to him. Hope that went well, brother, and you're enjoying time with your old man. And so we'll be back here next Monday evening, us three boys, talking wrestling like we always do with another new episode of the Pop-Up Powerbomb Podcast. And then, of course, me, Paul, and Chuck Magic will be back here this Wednesday evening to talk games, of course. And I'm quite sure there'll be some more juicy news coming out about this ABK saga as it continues in the courts. And we're all keeping our eye on that. Microsoft looking to close this within the next month. That the news is out there. They're trying to close this within the next month if they can. So all they really need to do is either sort something out here with the CMA or sort something out here with the FTC, and then they can just close it even without the other one. So.
Actually, they could close it anyway and just tell them to buzz off.
Well, they could do that too. They could do that too if they really wanted to. There's many options. So
I will say that in the next week we may get some news because next Friday is the end of Xbox's fiscal year.
Yes,
June 30th.
It is. And,
so if they want to keep the investors happy, they probably need to say something soon. So.
Yeah, exactly. You're not wrong there. But that's all we've got for you tonight, folks. I hope everyone's enjoyed the show. I want to thank, of course, everybody for stopping by, from Trin, who got in here late because she was out work. Good to see you, love, of course, and everything you do behind the scenes. Always greatly appreciated. Yo, B! Always great to talk wrestling with you, sir, because you go as far back as me and Paul, back to even the territory days. So we can always... go back and forth on our thoughts on that. Of course, we had PK, the brother PK in here, another big wrestling fan. Always love hearing from him. He's just got back, I think, the last day or so from LA. Was enjoying his time off. So I hope you enjoyed your time out there, brother, not just at the Xbox showcase, but catching up with friends.
Rubbing shoulders with Phil Spencer, we know.
The Countdown Man, of course. We hadn't seen him in a little minute because he had Lovers in the Air with Sister Prey there. But great to see him back in the chat. Of course, Sour Blow was up in here earlier as well. Back from the Dead, of course, was in here. Snark. Shout out to Snark. Of course, Dreadpool.
Oh, you know who was missing today? Your little buddy.
Nah, he was in here earlier.
Was he in here earlier? I didn't hear you say hi to him, so I thought.
Yeah, I said hi to him in the chat, and the minute I said that, he goes, "Oh, he had to go to bed." I was like, "Okay, all right, no worries." Little Pharrell, of course, he was in here earlier. That's the one. We'll see him in the chat probably earlier on Wednesday. He'll probably say hi and bye again, but whether you're in here for 5 minutes or stay with us the whole show. You know, it's all greatly appreciated, and we love...
always.
Love hearing from everybody, and that's all, folks. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day or evening, wherever you may be in this fine world. Until Wednesday evening, we will see you next time.